Alrighty everybody, so we're back again, and we're gonna do a tool review. I finally got myself a shiny new toy that I've been wanting for quite some time. It was not a very expensive version of it, but it's one that's gonna work for me because I don't do this much work on this type of component, and it's a reflow station, or a rework station. For SMD, SMT units, so surface mounted components such as ones you'll find on like that board right there. So that's what this is for. This is a 2-in-1. It's got a soldering iron that comes with it, and of course the reflow air gun. So this model is an 862D. Again, it's not a very expensive unit. It's a pretty cost-effective one. I paid a little under $80 shipped for this, okay? So I don't expect it to last forever, but I hardly do surface mount work, alright? It's very rare. Most of the stuff I'm doing is through-hole. So I didn't really feel the need to buy anything that's going to be overly expensive just for what I'm using it for personally. You guys might do a lot more, and if so, then go for the higher brand or higher priced ones. You know, the top end is not going to really be the best, like do your research, but this one would be good if you're going to do some hobbying work or so, just fixing a few circuit boards every once in a while. But it came as a kit, and it's not every single thing you see here, okay? The kit I got came with the reflow or rework station, and of course it comes with the air gun, the heated air gun, and the soldering iron, like I said. Even comes with a soldering iron stand, and of course a little sponge to clean your stuff with. Then it comes with your manual, so you know how to actually work the unit. We'll go over that a little bit later. And it comes with multiple different types of tips for your air gun, different sizes and dimensions and shapes. And of course it comes with multiple tips for your soldering iron. Now there was a couple things I got on the side with it that doesn't come with this unit, and that's going to be this tweezer set. Now this is one of those tweezer sets that don't produce static electricity, so you shouldn't damage your chips and other surface mount components by using these types of sets, okay? This is a 10-piece set, and it cost me roughly 12 bucks, and that's shipped too, with this cool little case that comes with it. And then of course I got some solder paste. I don't remember what this cost. I want to say this was like $8 or $9 shipped. It's a pretty small tube, and it's got like two different tips. It's got a needle tip and just a cone tip. And it's got information cards to telling you like the peak performance heat for this solder paste. Now, if you're unaware, solder paste is pretty much like what it says. It's a paste, and you can get it in a form like I have here, a little syringe tube, where you apply it on each tiny little pad by yourself, or you can get it in a tub, and you use like a squeegee with a kind of like a decal or a template that takes the shape of the solder pads, and you just squeegee it over the solder pads. But the big point about this is it's got teeny tiny little solder balls inside there. So when you heat it up with your gun, it will melt the solder and allow it to pretty much suck the component down onto the board and solder it into place. Alright? Before we go and play around with this a little bit and actually try it out, because it's been, gosh, over a decade since I've got to play with one of these awesome toys. So I'm going to need some practice myself, which I've got a few practice boards I can monkey around with. But before we do that, I figured it'd be kind of cool to open this up, take the screws off and see what's inside of this. And even open the air gun up and see what the inside looks like as well. I mean, what's it going to hurt? Let's just give it a shot and see what's inside there and kind of go over it. Now, before I pull away from you and put you up on the tripod, there are a few screws we'll have to remove. We got these two on the top, and then we've got 4 on the side, and then 4 on the opposite side. Oop, grab my air gun. We got 1, 2, 3, and 4. There are 2 screws right here that hold the holder for the air gun in place, but we don't need to remove those because those aren't mounting screws for like this outside bracket. That's just to hold this holder piece for your air gun. And by the way, when you get this unit, this is not attached to it. You have to attach it yourself, which is no big deal. It's just 2 screws, and boom, you're done. But other than that, I'm going to go ahead and set you up on a tripod, move some of this stuff around, and then we're going to open this up, and we're going to see what's inside of it. So we'll be right back. Okay, so we're all kind of set up here. The lighting's not too great, so I'm most likely going to be taking you off the tripod when we look at this a little bit closer. Got all the screws taken out, so all we have to do is just take this cover right off, just like so. And we are on the inside. You can kind of see, so let me take out the tripod here and we'll get you just a little bit closer. How's that? I'll turn this for better lighting. Hopefully better lighting. Okay. So, let's see if we can't focus a little bit. There we go. So as you can kind of see, it's pretty basic. Hence why it's a fairly inexpensive rework station. It's just got your basic transformer right here. It's going to be running all your, different powers that are needed. It does have a fuse holder and of course a standard 120 volt power cord. And then you have your PCB with all your controller ICs, your voltage regulators, and your potentiometers and such in order to control everything you're doing. You can't really see. Okay, there it is. Well, it's not really visible, unfortunately, but right here, there is the line that goes to the actual air gun, okay? And that seems to be going over to here. See those 2 wires wiggling? That's the control. That's like the heat element control going into this gun. Which means the brushless motor that blows the air, the hot air, is going to be inside here. And we'll see that when we tear this apart. We'll make sure of it, but I guarantee it at this point that's where it's at because I'm not seeing any kind of a blower motor in here. It's just a bunch of relays, capacitors, voltage regulators, and then of course a controller IC. And that controller IC is most likely to help switch between the different sides, between your soldering iron and your blower gun, okay? And I see we got a couple of push buttons here as well. I'm not going to monkey around with them because I don't know what they are controlling. The manual does not talk about that, okay? So that's the basic inside of this. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to put the cover back on. We'll tear the gun apart, check out what the inside of this looks like, put it back together, and then we'll go over the interface on the front and fire it up and see how it works and if it works. Because again, it's a cheap one, so we'll find out. So we'll be right back. Okay, so I got this back together. Now let's go ahead and take apart our little air gun, okay? So we have 2 screws in the base right here, and then this piece right up here unscrews, just like so. Holds it together. So we'll carefully pull this apart, just because I've never actually opened one of these up, and I don't want to screw anything up, needless to say. So get these screws loosened up real fast, drop them out of the case, and we'll split it apart and see what's in the inside here. Like I said, I want to try and be kind of careful. Okay, so there we go. I had to be extra, extra careful. So yep, just kind of like I thought. We have a circuit board right here. It's going to be kind of hard to see because I don't want to monkey too much stuff up here. But we have our circuit board here, which is controlling the voltage to our blower fan right here. And then we have all of our wires and our ground wires to our heating element to heat this piece up right here. And the air being forced through will force the air through the tip, allowing us to blow nice hot air. So that's pretty cool. Now we just gotta snap this thing back together very carefully so it actually goes together. There we go. And get the screws put back in it. You know, I'm gonna put this tip back on because it'll kind of sort of hold it in place in a way. Or is it supposed to go this way? Oh, it goes this way. Sorry, my bad. It goes that way. Had it in there wrong. That happens. Okay, now we'll tighten these screws back down. And that was basically the gun. I didn't want to go any farther than that because it's just really basic. It's just that little circuit board that helps control the blower motor in here. And then we got our main wires, our heavy duty gauge wires that are coming also off the circuit board too. They're probably like a voltage regulating kind of thing, so it maintains the heat, so if it overheats it might shut it down. I'm not sure if it has that feature or not, but maybe that's what that's for. With our heating element, that gets everything nice and hot up here, so when the air blows through, it's blowing that nice hot air in. So now that this has been put back together, we've opened up the body of the whole unit. Let's put it all together with the iron plugged in and everything. Let's test both sides out and just see how well it works. So let me get set up and we'll be right back. Okay, so now I've got us all set up so we can start working on some surface mount components, okay? I don't have the iron plugged into this unit yet. We'll do that on the next part of the video. Same video, just the next part. I just want to make it step by step, okay? Now let's just kind of go over the interface before we go and turn this thing on. So right off here, you're going to have a power switch for the soldering side and a power switch for the hot air side. They're independent from each other, so you can turn them on and off between each other. I mean, I guess you could probably turn them both on at the same time, but I probably wouldn't with a unit that doesn't cost as much like this one, so I'd probably just go in between, okay? Now right here, this little potentiometer knob, as you can see it says air. This is the airflow rate. So the higher you turn this knob up, the faster the air is going to flow out. Same, you know, going lower, it's going to be slower flowing air. Now, that's a little bit something you got to tinker with. Even I have to tinker with because it's been so long since I messed with one of these. If you have the air up too high, you might blow your component completely off your board, or you might misalign it so you got some shorts or legs that are soldered to points that they're not supposed to be soldered to. And if it's too low, it might not be fast enough to flow the air to make the solder melt efficiently, where you may end up causing damage to the components or the board itself, because there's a happy medium in order to allow the air to flow at a high enough temperature and fast enough to melt the solder without causing damage to the board or the components that you're soldering, okay? On the right hand side, we have our temperature controls. The top one is our soldering side, and the bottom one is our hot air side, okay? And this unit comes in Celsius. Now, I'm not going to lie, I'm not very good with Celsius, okay? I need to print myself off like a Celsius to Fahrenheit conversion chart or something so I can be a little more efficient with this. But both sides go from 100 degrees Celsius on the cold up to 480 degrees Celsius on the hot, which is 212 degrees Fahrenheit up to 896 degrees Fahrenheit. I can't get to my temperature gun. I have a thermal gun where I can actually measure temperature to actually determine if they're accurate or not. If I can find it before I'm completely done doing this video, we'll add it at the very end as like a bonus clip and determine if these are actually rated properly or if it's telling you the right temperature, okay? On the left hand side we have two displays, two digital displays. On the top is our soldering temperature, and on the bottom is our hot air temperature. And it's going to display the Celsius in degrees, or Celsius, okay, on what we're pumping out. And you can notice right here there's a little switch to the left, which is set to right now is auto. To the right is manual. Now this can be a little confusing, but this is for the hot air side of the unit. When it's set to auto, that's more for the cooling down of your gun. So when you're ready to use the gun to actually do a little surface mount work, you want to switch this over to manual. So when you set your temperature and everything and your airflow, that's what the gun's going to be producing after like a couple seconds or so once it heats up. When you're done, you want to go ahead and switch this over to auto, which is going to basically turn your gun off, but it's going to turn the heating element on the gun off, but it'll allow the air to keep flowing through until you actually physically turn it off here, so that it cools your tip down without causing any major damage to it. Okay? Now, the gun itself, the hot air gun, is physically attached to the machine. You cannot remove this. It's internally attached and everything like that. So this has to stay attached to it no matter what. The soldering iron, on the other hand, gets plugged in here, and there's a little screw that screws it down and holds it in place. So you can remove the iron very easily from it. It's not hooked up right now because at this point in the video, we're going to be using the hot air side to do a little bit of SMD work. Well, we're going to remove an IC chip. That's about it. I'm not going to attempt to add one yet because I still have to do a little more tinkering myself to get that side working. It's just a quick little demo. But in the next part of the video, I'll show you how to attach this while we test out the soldering iron, okay? So, now that we kind of go over a bit of the interface here, I'm going to put you on the tripod, and we're going to get set up with the hot air gun and test this out. See how well it works for us. Alright? So I'll be right back. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and set up my hot air gun. I got my set of tweezers pulled out, and I've chose the smallest tip in the pack of nozzles that comes with the hot air gun. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on the hot air gun, and I'm going to increase the temperature to about, let's say 230 Celsius. And 230 Celsius should roughly be about 446 degrees, 450 degrees Fahrenheit. I only know that because I'm cheating. I'm using Google right now to convert it, because again, I don't know. I'm going to increase the airflow a little bit. Now, I didn't point this out in the video earlier, but there is a red light. You might have seen the LED on the airflow indicator. That should be the let me know that the temperature comes up to where it's supposed to be. So once it gets to a light turned off, I believe, that's when I know that I'm up to temp. So we'll find out if this works. I might have to increase the temp. I might have to increase the airflow. I'm not quite sure. Again, it's been a long time since I've done this, so I'm kind of winging it at this point. I'm just hoping for the best. Just kind of moving my hand in front of it a little bit to see if it's kind of getting hot there. And I guess I could technically look in the manual quick just to determine to make sure that everything's doing what it's supposed to be doing, but so far I'm not seeing any problems. The air is flowing pretty smoothly. It's actually really quiet, to be honest with you. I'm just waiting for it to heat up properly. And we can kind of take it from there. It's definitely getting hot, but I don't think it's hot enough yet. I'm using the angled anti-statics, by the way, because I did a little test off camera, and these hold the edge, the end pieces of this little IC here pretty well, so I can hold it very carefully while heating up all the solder pads on both sides without burning my fingers and without causing a static shock to the actual circuit itself. So I should be able to remove it fairly easily. And they got some decent grip too. I was able to pick the circuit board up with very little effort in general. So we'll just give this just a little bit longer to see if we can't get it to do what we want it to do. It's pretty warm as it is, and I guess I could always just kind of like gently run it over here, like so, and see if it's gonna start melting anything. I apologize if this is in the way of your view. Now it would be ideal to do this on a hot plate so that it keeps the bottom of the board nice and hot, but it seems to be working pretty well so far because it's kind of lifting up as I'm talking to you. Oh, there we go, look at that. Came right off. No problems actually. Very little effort. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. I am definitely surprised. I'm completely shocked. I didn't think it was going to work that well, I'm not going to lie. With it being as cheap as it was, that's incredible to me. And it did no damage to the board. Not a single thing has been hurt, and the chip looks like it's still in great shape. Now this is supposed to be a working board. It came out of a working computer, a really old computer, so I wasn't really worried about using it as a test piece, but dang. I like that. Okay, well that's the hot air side of things. That seems to be working great. I really, really like that. So now I threw it over to the auto mode like I talked to you about, and that turns the heating element off. I know you can't see it on camera right now. I wish I would have had the camera to show you, but the temperature gauge for the hot air side is rapidly dropping, because it's now blowing cooler air to cool off the tip. So you want to basically run that until it's nice and cold again, or cool, and then you turn off the hot air side. But yeah, that worked great, guys. Holy crap. Alright, so I'm going to let you guys go for a sec, and we're going to get set up to do the soldering side and test that thing out. So we'll be right back, alright? Okay, so we just saw that the hot air station actually works pretty well. So now I'm going to plug in the soldering station, which is going to be just this plug right here. It's going to go into this connector here. It can only go in one way. It's keyed, so you can't really screw it up. So you get that plugged in. Then you're going to want to screw it down with this ring so it holds it in place. If I can get it threaded. Again, it's still kind of a cheap unit. Regardless of the hot air working just fine, you're going to have a little bit of tension on these threads. Okay, so we're in place. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to power it on. I'm going to power up the soldering side, which is going to be right there. That's our temperature. Now, that's our current temperature, and it's trying to raise up the temp. Now it's at 100 degree. I'm going to bring it up, that's 100 Celsius, to 230, just like we did with the last one, which should be right around 446, 450, something in that area. And there we go. You see it? It's raising the temperature. Alright, now it should be ready to actually use. Before I do that though, I'm going to use my tip tinner, because this is a brand new tip. And I'm going to tin the tip real quick and run it into my wet sponge. See, now that tells me it's not really heated up yet, because it's not doing what it should do right away. It should sizzle that away pretty quickly. It's not, it's globbing up. So, well, it seems okay, I guess. The sponge shows it's hot. Well, we got a nice tin tip, and we're going to use my practice board here. So we give that a couple more seconds to heat up. Let me zoom in on the practice board for the piece we're going to solder. Okay, now that we're zoomed in, you can kind of see the 2 points right there and right there. We're going to solder those with this new iron and see how well it does. Now I'm going to do this without flux, because I'm kind of curious to see how well it does. So here we go. Let's see here. It should be hot enough. Okay, I'm going to increase the temperature. We're going to go up to 300 degrees Celsius, which, if I look at this conversion on Google, that should be 572 degrees. I'll clean my tip off real quick. And we'll see if this is actually going to work better. I might have chosen the wrong tip. That makes a big difference too. I chose a pretty narrow tip, and I probably should have chosen a much wider tip for this, because these pads are actually quite big compared to your standard pads. Well, I didn't do too bad when I increased the temperature. It's not great. It's not the best solder pad. Again, I'm thinking it's because of the tip I chose. It's just way too small of a tip. But I will give it does heat up quite quickly. Much faster than I thought it was going to. So that's pretty cool. I'm going to take a quick look. Yeah, the solder joints are passable. They're not the greatest. Definitely not the greatest. But, you know, for messing up on the size of tip I should have used, they're not bad. I mean, I'll give them a C. They're definitely not A's, but it works though. That's the nice thing. It does actually work. So, I'll turn that off so I can start to cool down. Well, I mean, I guess in all honesty, that's pretty much it for the review. I'm going to try and find my heat gun, my temperature gun, so we can compare the two different temperatures from the air gun and the soldering iron, and see if the temperature ranges are actually accurate or not, or at least how close they are to accurate. And that'd be kind of it for it. So, hang tight, guys, and you're going to see a little bonus clip on if the temperatures are right. But thanks for watching otherwise. That's the review of the 862D Rework Station. I'm not going to lie, I'm happy with it, especially for the cost. I mean, 80 bucks for something I'm not going to use that often, but, you know, when I need it, I at least know it's going to work for me. So, it might be something for people like yourselves who don't have much money or don't want to spend a ton of money on the occasional reworking for surface mount components. I mean, if you're going to be doing a lot of surface mount work, I wouldn't buy one of these. I'd go ahead and spring the money for something a little more fancier and nicer, especially with one that has a hot plate or a heat plate on it. That'll definitely help you out with the rework part. But if you're just a hobbyist or you do very little surface mount work, this is something I would recommend. I really would, because it seems to work awesome. So other than that, you have a great day, guys, and enjoy the bonus clip. We'll see you next time.